Hi, everybody. I'm Jamie Miller of Pandora Astrology, and with me is Julia Mijas. And we are going to talk with you about your horoscope for Aries. And this month, Aries, Julia is going to tell you all about the activity of Venus and Mars and Saturn. And then I'm going to talk about Mercury and the new and full moons. Hey, Julia, take it away.
Awesome, Jamie. Well, Aries, so let's start with Venus because everyone loves Venus. She's the planet of relationships and love and beauty. And on March 4th, she's going to be entering your second house when she goes into the sign of Taurus. And the second house is the house of personal possessions, it's the house of our money. And wherever we have Venus is where we find some pleasure. So you could really be enjoying your stuff a lot this month. And if you feel kind of spendy, if you're in the mood to do a little bit of shopping, this transit is really great for acquiring luxury items, artistic items, as well as beauty too. So the things that you buy under this influence may really bring you pleasure for a long time. Now, another planet I want to talk about is Mars, and Mars begins this month in your 10th house of career. So wherever we have Mars is where we feel really driven. So you could be feeling really, really extra driven at work, and you can get a lot of stuff done at work, definitely under this influence. But you might not feel like being such a team player because Mars is such an independent planet. So if you can do independent work, that would probably be best. And also be wary of any clashes you might have with authority figures during this time because they're also represented by the 10th house. Then Mars enters your 11th house at the very end of the month at March 30th. So that means you're going to be feeling really driven to sort of achieve your long range goals because the 11th house is the house of hopes, wishes, and dreams. So the goals that we have for ourselves, which will get realized 10, 20 years down the line. It's also the house of friends too. So be wary of conflict in that area as well. Then we're also having the spring equinox this month, which begins on March 19th. And that's when the sun shifts from the final degree of Pisces into the very first degree of Aries. And even though these signs seem like they're right next to each other, in the zodiac, which they are, there's really just kind of this quantum leap of transition and change, which can happen with the end of an old cycle and the beginning of a new one. So this transit and this time brings a little bit of freshness to wherever we have Aries in our chart. And that corresponds with your first house. So you might just feel a little extra fresh, a little more like authentic to yourself, a little bit more like in touch with who you are, because the first is the house of self. Now, a big major transition is happening with Saturn entering Aquarius on March 21st, and that corresponds with your 11th house. And again, we mentioned it a little bit earlier that the 11th house is hopes, wishes, and dreams, as well as the house of friends. Well, Saturn, by transit, tends to put a little bit of limitation on whatever house he crosses. And now, since he's jumping into your 11th house, and he's going to be there for a couple of years, we all have Saturn somewhere. We all got to deal with him.
True.
You might feel a little restricted, a little bit constrained in your long range goals. Maybe you're a bit frustrated in achieving these objectives. Things that you thought, oh yeah, 10, 20 years from now, I want to be there. And then this transit kind of puts a little crunch on them. But Saturn isn't just there to annoy you and frustrate you and piss you off. It's really a transit that's kind of testing these goals, which might be challenging at first, but once we hit our stride with Saturn, and he's going to be there for a couple of years, so you've got some time to do this, you can really sort of examine these goals and really figure out which ones are much more worth it than others, and also find some realistic and practical means for achieving them. Now, the 11th house is also the house of friends and groups, and Saturn bringing a little restriction to this area might make you feel a little bit more of a lone wolf too, like maybe, or a little bit more detached from the social circles in your life, whether they're a group of friends or whether it's another type of association that you're a part of. But again, this is a time of testing and examining like what you want out of your groups, what you want out of your friendships, and whether some of them have been worth it, or there might be some other ones that you'll realize during and after the transit would be a much better expression of who you are. What are you seeing this month, Jamie?
Well, I was just thinking that we've got a video that says much more about Saturn and Aquarius in the March news playlist and also the 2020 news playlist. And that Saturn's going to be dancing back and forth between Aquarius. It's really just going to dip into Aquarius a very little bit and be there for a couple of months before backing into Capricorn for one final stint, and then it'll move into Aquarius for real at the end of the year and then stay there for another couple of years. So it's going to be a bit of a strange year with Saturn going back and forth like that, but the video contains a lot of clues. Um, so I want to talk about lunations and I want to talk about Mercury. Mercury is also entering Aquarius early this month. And let's see, where's the little guy? Here he is. Now, Mercury is retrograde right now. I'm sorry. That's just the way it is. It sucks. There's a video about it in the February news playlist. If you want to, figure out how to cope while you're in situ. And that would be the one that's actually about the new moon in Pisces. There's lots of discussion of Mercury retrograde in Pisces in that video. So that can help. But here at the beginning of the month, as we see, Mercury is in the beginning of Pisces, but it's moving retrograde, so it actually backs up into Aquarius. And then it continues backwards, and then it stops and turns direct at 28 degrees, and then moves forward into Pisces again. And that's really where it catches up with the that new moon. No, it catches up with the moon. The moon catches up with it, but the new moon that I was talking about was the one in February. So, so basically, Mercury, while retrograde, is bouncing back and forth between Aquarius and Pisces, and then will move on. And the day that it goes direct, which is March 9th, is also the day of the full moon in Virgo. And we have given this a name because we're really looking forward to it, and that is coming out of the fog. Because Mercury going direct in Aquarius is cause for celebration after we've all been dealing with Mercury retrograde in Pisces. And for you, Aries in particular, Mercury retrograde in Pisces has probably been making you look at stuff that's hidden to you, that's behind you, that you can't nor ordinarily see, stuff in your dream life, your fantasy life, but not in your everyday reality. And trying to get clear on that stuff and articulate that stuff and like find your way through the fog about that stuff. Oh, how annoying for Aries, right? So Mercury goes direct here on the 9th. The full moon is also happening. The moon is in Virgo, and oh my gosh, does a Virgo moon love clarity and articulation and boundaries and clear lines between things. So I think this full moon is going to feel really good in terms of emerging finally from the fog of that Mercury retrograde period. And then, a couple days later, Mercury is going to move back into Pisces, but it's going to go on direct and it's going to speed up. And by the end of the month, Mercury will be moving fast, zipping along through Pisces, moving more than a degree a day through Pisces. And finally, things are going to feel like they're getting back to normal. There is a new moon on March 24th that I want to show you also, and that is happening in Aries, your sign, your first house. And this is really going to emphasize that feeling of renewal that Julia was talking about with the equinox. It's happening pretty shortly after the equinox. And so it's very much that feeling of rebirth as the moon and the sun meet up to plant new seeds. That's a phrase that I always like to use for the new moon. And in your house of self, your house of identity, your house of being and doing and acting and being seen, I think that this is going to give you a chance, it's going to be invigorating, that's for sure. It's going to be refreshing, revitalizing, and it's going to give you a chance to put your money where your mouth is, to take some actions that are an expression of the truth of who you really are. And I think that could feel pretty good. I've named this particular new moon "Springtime is for Healing" because Chiron is very involved, and you can see right here it is nestled in between the sun and the moon. And so this is going to be a moon in which, if you haven't been assertive enough in the past, you can correct that. And if you've been too assertive in the past, you'll be invited to correct that too. And hopefully to heal so that you can get such a deep sense of confidence in yourself and in your actions that that you don't need to be checked by the outside world, because everything you do is the right thing to do, completely in alignment with who you are on every level, and with the people around you as well. So very refreshing. And I think that's all we have for you today. I would think that the activity in the 10th house, activity in the 11th house, activity in the first house, a lot of this stuff is kind of spread around the chart. And your birthday is coming, so my guess is if you wanted a reading to understanding these things any further, that the solar return birthday reading is the one that you would want to get a jump on your new year so that you can enter into that state of revitalization, knowing already, when your feet hit the ground, which direction you want to run in. So that's what I recommend. And Julia or I would love to do that for you. So you can always find more horoscopes like this on our website at pandorastrology.com/horoscope. Or you can tool around our YouTube channel, Pandora Astrology, for our monthly news videos, our yearly news videos, and our horoscope videos. And until next month, we'll see you around the cosmos. Bye.
Bye, guys.